The first time my brother made a snide comment about my marriage, we were sitting across from each other at our parents' kitchen table, eating lukewarm lasagna and pretending the silence wasn't uncomfortable. I was 33, freshly married, finally feeling like I'd hit a stable stride in life. My name's Morgan, and I've never been flashy or loud about my success. I work in education. More specifically, I'm a high school guidance counselor. It's not a glamorous job, and no, it doesn't come with a corner office or a six-figure salary, but I'm good at it. I like helping kids figure out who they want to be. That matters to me. My brother, Travis, he's 35 and the type who introduces himself with his full job title like it's a badge of honor, works in finance. He talks fast, wears watches that cost more than my car, and thrives on phrases like scaling and disruption. He married a woman named Fiona, who's sharp in the way a blade is sharp. Cold, calculated, polished to perfection. She's one of those startup founders that talk about burn rate at brunch and interrupt you to correct your vocabulary. They're a power couple, at least in their own minds. My wife, Lena, is a nurse. She's steady, patient, and has this grounding presence that people either admire or feel threatened by. She's never needed to be the center of attention, and I think that irritates Fiona, who fills every room with the force of a startup pitch. Lena and I met during one of the worst weeks of my life, when my best friend passed away suddenly, and she was the triage nurse in the ER where he was brought in. She stayed with me long after her shift ended. We didn't fall in love at that moment or anything. It took time. But that's the thing about Lena. She gives you time, space to feel. She's not flashy either, which is probably why Travis calls her humble, like it's a euphemism for basic. That day at the kitchen table, the conversation had turned, inevitably, toward careers. My mom, as always, asked Travis how his firm was doing, if his latest pivot was working, and if Fiona had raised another round of funding. I was used to it. My parents love Lena. They do, but they don't exactly understand us. They think we're too comfortable, like that's a bad thing. Like stability is a failure of ambition. Travis had just finished bragging about Fiona's app, something about automating HR for remote teams, or whatever, when he turned to me and grinned that grin that always makes my stomach twist. So, Morgan, how's the school counseling gig? Still convincing kids not to major in art history. His tone was light, but the dig was clear. I smiled tightly. Yeah, one kid wants to be a sculptor. Told me he was inspired by Fiona's grind set. I told him to aim higher. Travis laughed too loudly. Nice. Maybe he'll start a ceramic subscription box and raise $2 million by the end of high school. I didn't respond. I never really do. Not because I don't have comebacks, but because I know how this game goes. The more you react, the more you lose. But then he looked at Lena, who'd been quietly sipping her tea and scrolling through photos of the cat we'd just adopted, and dropped the line that would start it all. Gotta say, though, you really did marry below your league, huh? I mean, no offense, Lena. You're lovely. But you know what I mean. He chuckled, like we were all in on the joke. Guess you just needed someone low maintenance after all the chaos you used to date. There was this half-second pause in the room where I felt my jaw clench and my vision narrow just a little. My mom awkwardly cleared her throat, pretending she didn't hear it. My dad kept eating like he always does when things get tense. Lena didn't flinch. She just met his gaze and said, "Thanks for your input, Travis," with this cool, level tone that made him blink like he'd been slapped. I could have let it slide, but something in me twisted, broke a little. That comment, that arrogance, this wasn't just sibling teasing. This was disrespect. And not the playful, backhanded kind we'd exchanged as kids. No, this was different. He didn't see me. He didn't see Lena. We were props in his success story, minor characters in the epic of Travis and Fiona. I wish I could say that was the worst of it, but it wasn't. That was just the first crack in the dam. Over the next few months, things got weird. Fiona's startup began making headlines, not the good kind. Layoffs, missed revenue projections, a rumored investigation. Travis started showing up at my place more often, usually alone, always just passing through. I could tell he was off, fidgety, less arrogant, but somehow more intense. Like he was holding something in, a slow-building panic he refused to name. He still made comments, but they got more desperate, more targeted. "Must be nice not having investors breathing down your neck," he'd mutter while we watched a game. Or, "I envy you, man. No one expects a counselor to make six figures, right? No pressure." Then came the day my parents showed up at my door unannounced. I was in the backyard, clipping the hedge and listening to a podcast when Lena poked her head out and said, "Your parents are here." No heads up, just rang the bell. My stomach dropped. They came bearing pastries and tight smiles. We sat on the patio, made small talk, and then my mom launched into it like she'd been rehearsing in the car. "Morgan, sweetheart, you know we've always been proud of your path. And Lena, dear, your work during the pandemic was so admirable." Here it comes, I thought. But Travis and Fiona are going through a hard time. The startup world can be brutal. They've taken on some debt, quite a bit, actually, and they're trying to stabilize. It's just a temporary rough patch. I stayed quiet. My dad cleared his throat. They might lose the house. There it was. The shoe dropping. The twist. The setup. And we thought. My mom continued, voice getting softer, more syrupy. "Since you and Lena have always been so responsible, and you've been saving for years, maybe you could help. Just a little. Family supports each other. You've always been the good son." Good son. That phrase clanged around in my head like a dropped wrench. I stared at her, then at my dad. They looked uncomfortable, but determined. Like this was a moral duty I should have already accepted. It's hard to describe what it feels like when your own family looks you in the eye and asks you to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. After my parents dropped the bomb about Travis and Fiona's rough patch, they looked at me like it was already done. Like I had already agreed to drain my savings account and clean up the mess their golden boy had made. The pastries sat untouched between us. Lena hadn't said a word yet. She just folded her arms, leaned back, and waited, quiet, sharp, observant. I cleared my throat, trying to keep my voice even. "How much are we talking about?" My mom offered a guilty smile. "Not much, honey. Just enough to buy them some time. Fiona's still talking to investors." "How much?" Dad spoke this time, eyes avoiding mine. 250,000. There was a pause that stretched for miles. I blinked. "You want me to give them $250,000? "Not give," my mom corrected quickly. "Just lend. Until things turn around. You know how these tech companies work. One good quarter, and they'll be back on their feet. They just need a bridge." I let out a breath through my nose. I wasn't even angry yet. Just stunned. "You think I have that kind of money lying around?" Dad looked up finally. "You've been saving for over a decade, haven't you? You and Lena have always been good with money. Frugal. No kids, no expensive hobbies. You've lived well below your means for years." He said it like it was a compliment, but it felt more like an audit. Like they'd been tracking us. Judging. Calculating. "We were saving for a house," Lena said quietly. Her first words since they arrived. Calm, but unmistakably clear. "And maybe starting a family someday. That's what our savings are for." Mom waved a hand like she was swatting away a fly. "You can still do all that. Just later. Right now, Travis needs help. Family comes first." I laughed, just a small, dry one. "Travis is your priority. He always has been." My mom frowned. "That's not fair." "No." I leaned forward. "Who got a brand new car at 16 while I rode my bike to school? Who got his college paid for, including that fifth-year finance program, while I took out loans for undergrad? Who got bailed out when his crypto fund collapsed in 2018? I remember Dad calling it a learning experience. "That's ancient history," Dad snapped. "Why are you dragging that up now?" "Because it's a pattern," I said. "You didn't come here to ask. You came to tell me what I owe you. What you think I should do, because I've always been the one who doesn't fight back." My mom's voice softened, like she thought she could still win this with sweetness. "Morgan, honey, you've always been the level-headed one. Travis, he needs support. He's under a lot of pressure. And I'm not." I asked, my voice cracking slightly. "Do you know how many of my students come to me because their parents don't listen? Don't see them? Every day I watch kids break down because they feel like they don't matter. And I nod and I say, that must be hard. I'm sorry you're going through that." But I never say, "Me too," because I didn't want to believe I was still that kid. The silence after that felt like a crater. Lena reached over and gently touched my arm. "I think we're done here." My mom stood up, her face pinched. I didn't realize we raised such a selfish son. That one stung, more than I expected it to. They left without another word. The days after that were strange. Tense. I didn't hear from Travis right away, which surprised me. I figured he'd come storming over, entitled and indignant. But he didn't. Instead, I got a message 2 nights later, just a text, no punctuation. "We need to talk. Tomorrow night. Your place." No question. No, can we? Just an instruction. Lena saw it over my shoulder. You don't owe him anything. I know, I said. But I still said yes. I don't know what I expected when he showed up. Maybe some half-hearted attempt at humility. Maybe even an apology. What I got instead was a performance. He walked in wearing a leather jacket and aviators like he was trying to cosplay as a man who hadn't lost everything. He didn't even sit down right away. Just paced around my living room like he owned it. I'm going to be real with you, he said, which was always code for, I'm about to lie. We're in trouble. Fiona's company is basically in freefall. Investors pulled out after the beta crash. We laid off 40% of our team. Our Series B tanked. Fiona's been drinking more. Look, it's bad. I waited. He kept going. We're probably going to have to sell the condo. Maybe the Tesla. But that's temporary. Once we get back on our feet, we're going to pay you back. With interest. You're assuming I already said yes. He blinked. You're seriously going to make me beg? No, I said. Because begging implies there's a chance I'll say yes. He sat down hard. Jesus, Morgan. It's not like I'm asking for a handout. This is a loan. It's family. I looked him dead in the eyes. You called my wife below my league. At dinner. In front of our parents. He scoffed. You're seriously bringing that up now? It's not about the money, I said. It's about the fact that you don't respect me. You never have. And you expect me to clean up your mess because you think I'm the responsible one. But you don't actually value me. I'm just the fallback plan. The safe bet. Travis leaned forward, his voice dropping into something darker. If you don't help us, Mom and Dad will have to step in. They'll dip into their retirement. You're willing to let that happen? I shrugged. They made their choice. They can live with it. You're punishing them to get back at me. No, I said. I'm just finally choosing myself. He stood up, jaw tight. You think this makes you a hero? You think Lena's going to look at you and see some noble martyr? All she's going to see is a man who let his brother drown. She already sees a man who stopped letting himself be used. He stormed out without another word. I wish that had been the end of it. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Lena while I was at work. She sounded shaken. Morgan, your parents are here. With Travis. They just walked in. I left school early and drove home, heart pounding. When I got there, the scene looked like something out of a bad family sitcom. My mom was sitting on the couch with a box of papers. My dad stood in the corner, arms crossed. Travis was in the kitchen, sipping our orange juice like he owned it. What's going on? I asked. My mom stood. We found a solution. We're adding Travis to your trust. I stared. My what? Dad spoke. The trust Grandma left you. From when she passed. The one you've been letting sit, untouched. There's over 200,000 in it. I took a step back. How do you even know about that? We've always known, my mom said. We were the trustees when you were a minor. Your financial advisor is still in our contacts. We called him. I felt like the room was spinning. You went behind my back. It's not behind your back, Travis chimed in. It's a family asset. You weren't even using it. I looked at Lena. She was pale, gripping the back of a chair like it was the only thing keeping her upright. That money was for our future, she said quietly. For our children. You don't even have kids, my mom said, almost laughing. And if things keep going this way, you might not. Maybe this is God's way of telling you to help your brother instead. And that was it. That was the breaking point. The moment everything snapped. I stood there, staring at these people who shared my blood, and I realized they weren't going to stop. They'd dig into everything I'd built. Strip it bare, wrap it in guilt, and call it love. I turned to Lena. Pack a bag. We're leaving. What? My mom said. Don't be dramatic. I didn't answer her. I didn't even look back. We didn't even stop to argue. Lena grabbed our overnight bags from the hallway closet, her face like stone. I took our lockbox, passport files, and my laptop, and we were out the door before my parents had a chance to ask where we were going. I didn't slam the door behind us. I didn't yell. I just left it swinging behind me like the final word in a conversation I was done having. We drove in silence for a while. I could feel Lena watching me, but she didn't press. She knew I was trying to hold the pieces together inside. Knew that if she said anything too kind, too loving, I might break open. So she just reached over, rested her hand on my knee, and let me drive. That's one of the many reasons I married her. We ended up at a small cabin 2 hours out of the city, a place we'd once stayed at for our anniversary, nestled against the edge of a pine forest with creaky floors and terrible cell service. At the time, it had felt rustic and romantic. Now it felt like a life raft. We stayed for a week. I told my principal I needed some emergency leave, and she didn't press. Lena called out of work too. We spent the first 2 days just breathing, walking, making coffee, and drinking it slowly, letting the silence settle into the spaces our families had stormed through. On the third night, we sat out on the porch with blankets around our shoulders and talked. I keep replaying it, I admitted. The way they said it, the way they looked at me, like that money wasn't mine. Like I was being selfish for wanting to build a future with you instead of bailing out a sinking ship. Lena nodded. They don't respect boundaries because they've never had to follow them. And you've spent your whole life trying to be the good son. They knew you wouldn't blow up, so they thought you'd cave. I looked at her. What if I had? What if I said yes, just to make it stop? You didn't, she said. That's what matters. But I carried the guilt anyway. I didn't want to. I knew it wasn't mine. But it clung to me like wet clothes. The feeling that I had let my family down, even when I knew they didn't deserve my help. I hated that it still bothered me. I hated that some part of me still wanted to be seen by them, understood by them, loved by them, for who I really was, not just for what I could give. It took me a long time to admit that they probably never would. When we finally returned home, the house felt different. Not haunted exactly, but violated. Like someone had rummaged through our future without asking. I checked the trust account first thing. To my relief, it hadn't been touched yet. But I wasn't naive enough to think it would stay that way. I called our financial advisor, explained the situation, and told him to lock it down. New passwords, new trustees, full legal firewall. He hesitated when I mentioned my parents, probably because he'd worked with them for years. But in the end, he agreed. Then we went to a lawyer, not a family lawyer. A sharp, intimidating woman named Corinne who came highly recommended by one of Lena's co-workers. We told her everything, what they said, what they tried to access, how they still technically had paperwork from when I was a minor. Corinne raised an eyebrow. This is classic overreach. You're not a minor. You've been earning your own income for over a decade. If they attempt to use any of that paperwork now, they're committing fraud. Lena asked, can we preempt it somehow? Stop them before they try. Corinne smiled. Oh, absolutely. But it'll be loud. I smiled back. Good. That same week, I also filed a restraining order, not a full one, but a no-contact order tied to financial interference. Travis and Fiona tried to call. I blocked them. Then my mom started emailing from various addresses, each one more desperate than the last. You're tearing this family apart. This isn't what Grandma would have wanted. We'll pay you back. We always take care of our own. And then, if you won't do this for Travis, at least do it for me. I raised you, Morgan. I gave you everything I had. I sat with that one for a long time. Then I closed my laptop and didn't open her messages again. But here's the part one didn't expect. Cutting them off didn't make me feel free right away. It made me feel hollow. I had built so much of my identity around being the good one, the peacemaker, the responsible son, the quiet achiever. Without that role to play, who was I? I started having dreams about being back in high school, wandering the hallways, late for class, trying to explain something I didn't understand to people who weren't listening. It didn't take a therapist to figure out what that meant. Lena told me I should talk to someone, and for once, I didn't brush it off. I found a counselor, Mel, an older guy with a calm voice and a messy office full of plants. At first, I didn't know what to say, but eventually, the words came. I feel like I walked away from a fire, but I still smell like smoke. Mel nodded. That's grief. You lost something, even if it was toxic. Over the next few months, we worked through it. The need for approval, the guilt, the belief that I had to earn love by being useful. Mel didn't give me advice, exactly. He just asked the right questions, made me look at things differently. At the same time, I started putting more energy into my work. Not in an obsessive way, not to prove anything, just with focus, with care. I started a new after-school program for seniors who didn't plan to go to college, helping them find jobs, internships, apprenticeships, giving them tools to build real lives. One kid, Elijah, pulled me aside one day and said, Mr. Morgan, no one's ever talked to me like I matter before. I drove home that night and cried in the car for 20 minutes. Not because I was sad, but because I realized I was finally living the life I wanted. The life I had built on purpose. Not for praise, not for approval, just because it mattered. Lena and I found a new financial advisor too. Someone independent. We reorganized everything. Our trust, our savings, our house plans. We bought a plot of land just outside the city, nothing fancy, but private, peaceful, somewhere we could grow into. And here's the twist that made everything shift. About 6 months after we cut contact, I got a letter in the mail. Not from my parents. Not from Travis. From Fiona. Handwritten. The envelope had no return address. Just my name in looping cursive and a stamp from a town upstate. Lena read it over my shoulder. Morgan, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I don't blame you. I owe you an apology, not just for what I said, but for the way I treated you both. I was proud, arrogant, and blind to my own downfall. You were never below me. You were always ahead of me. I just refused to see it. Travis is unraveling. He doesn't listen to anyone. Not even me. I'm staying with my sister now, trying to rebuild. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to say thank you. You showed me what it looks like to have a backbone, to choose dignity over obligation. I'm trying to do the same. Take care of each other. You deserve peace. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. But it hit me harder than I expected. People change. Some don't. But sometimes, seeing someone else's rock bottom reminds you just how far you've come. And I wasn't at rock bottom anymore. I was rising. The cracks in my life weren't weaknesses. They were space for light to get through. There's a calm that comes after heartbreak. It's not peace exactly. It's the quiet between storms. A lull where your body still flinches from the thunder, but your mind finally begins to sharpen. That's where I was when Travis made his final mistake. By this point, Lena and I were in a good place. Not perfect, but stronger. Firmer in who we were, and what we were no longer willing to tolerate. The lot we'd bought had been cleared and surveyed. We were working with a modest design team to build the kind of home we could raise a family in, away from the noise and shadows we grew up with. I was still meeting with Mel, still checking in with myself more than I ever had before. Life, for the first time in a long while, felt like it was ours. Until I got the call from my old friend Owen. Owen and I had gone to college together. We weren't best friends, but we'd always stayed in touch over the years, holiday cards, the occasional lunch when he was in town. He was in real estate now. Smart guy. Honest, which is rare in his field. He called me out of the blue one afternoon. Hey, he said, voice hesitant. I'm not sure if this is a mistake or something you're already handling, but I just got a flagged alert on a property inquiry, with your name attached. I furrowed my brow. What kind of alert? A mortgage application, he said. Someone applied for pre-approval using your name, your social security number, and Lena's maiden name as the co-signer. But here's the thing. They listed Travis's address as the primary residence. I felt the air leave my lungs. You're kidding. I wish I was, he said. I recognized your name and held the app. Didn't process it. Figured I'd call first. But this. Morgan, it looks bad. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared out the window at our garden. Lena's tulips had started blooming. She'd been so excited about them. How bad? I finally asked. Bad enough that if I didn't know you personally, it might have gone through. He had everything. Your info, your employment history, your income range. It wasn't just a shot in the dark. Someone did their homework. When I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Then I got up, walked into the bedroom, and opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand. Lena looked up from her laptop. What's wrong? He tried to steal my identity, I said calmly. To buy a house. She blinked. What? I handed her the file I kept in that drawer, printouts of old emails, screen caps, documents from the trust, the lawyer letters, everything. I'd been keeping it quietly, just in case. A paper trail. Lena took it without a word and began reading. For the next few hours, we worked in tandem, like gears finally locking into place. She pulled every shred of financial history we had. I called Corinne. She was furious, but also thrilled. This is felony territory now, she said. Not just fraud. Attempted theft. Identity misuse. We can go nuclear. I paused. Do we want to? Corinne didn't flinch. You tell me, Morgan. Because once we start this, it won't just be a slap on the wrist. This could cost him everything. You sure you're ready for that? I thought about it. About the dinners, the insults, the way he smiled when he mocked my marriage. I thought about my parents, sitting in my house like it belonged to them, trying to open my trust like it was a family purse. I thought about Fiona's letter, and how even she had the decency to apologize. And I thought about the house Lena and I were building. A life. A future. I'm ready, I said. That night, Lena and I didn't just plan revenge. We engineered it. Step 1. We gathered allies. I called Owen again, asked him to save everything. He agreed, and not just because we were friends. This kind of fraud damages the entire market, he said. If he's done it once, he's probably done it before. We reached out to Mel, not because he could legally help, but because I needed someone to help me navigate the emotional weight. He reminded me to stay grounded. Revenge feels good in theory, he said. But what you really want is accountability. Make him own what he did. Then we contacted Fiona. I wasn't sure if she'd answer, but she picked up on the first ring. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. Less edge, more weight. Morgan, she said. I wondered if I'd ever hear from you again. We need to talk, I said. About Travis. She didn't ask why. She just said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Fiona showed up wearing jeans and a faded hoodie, like someone trying to disappear into a new life. She looked tired, but clearer, like someone who'd finally stopped spinning the plates. We showed her what we had. Her face darkened. He's still using your name? She muttered. Unbelievable. He filed a mortgage application using my identity, I said. He planned to buy a house, probably to refinance the debt from your startup collapse. Fiona nodded slowly. That actually tracks. He's desperate. His credit is trashed. Investors are threatening legal action. I left before it got really bad, but I knew he was spiraling. Would you testify? Lena asked. If it came to that. Fiona didn't hesitate. Yes. Step 2. Set the trap. Corinne advised we give Travis just enough rope to hang himself with. Rather than confront him immediately, she suggested we let the application process advance just a bit further. Owen agreed to forward the request to underwriting, on paper, so it would trigger a second layer of verification. That's when Corinne's investigator stepped in. Within a week, we had screen recordings of Travis logging in under my name. Multiple IP addresses, geolocation data, even a phone call he made to a mortgage agent pretending to be me, voice shaky, but passable. It was damning. The final straw came when we discovered he'd opened a new line of credit using my name. Just a few $100s, probably a test run, but enough to be considered identity theft. Enough for prosecution. Corinne filed the paperwork. But that wasn't the endgame. That was the setup. The endgame? That came when we discovered something buried deep in Grandma's old will. A clause my parents had never mentioned. Apparently, the trust wasn't just money. It included land. Specifically, a parcel of commercial real estate that had quietly appreciated in value over the last 20 years. Once worthless, now part of a booming suburban corridor. I'd always assumed the trust was just cash, some bonds, maybe a few mutual funds. But no, it was tied to a piece of property. And guess what? My dad had been trying to sell that land on my behalf for months, assuming he still had authority over it. Corinne got wind of it during the discovery process. Looks like your father forged some outdated paperwork, she said. He tried to pitch it as part of an estate liquidation, but the buyer flagged it because the name on the deed was yours. They were trying to cash out behind my back. That changed everything, because now we weren't just looking at Travis. We were looking at a coordinated attempt by both my parents to defraud me. Do we press charges on them too? Lena asked. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I asked Corinne to prepare a new document, a cease and desist letter addressed to all three of them, outlining every legal infraction, every piece of evidence, and the consequences if they did not comply with our demands. But I didn't want to just send it. I wanted them to see it, to feel it. So we invited them to a meeting. Neutral ground. A conference room at Corinne's office. They didn't know Fiona would be there. They didn't know about the land. They didn't know what was coming. But I did. And this time, I wasn't the quiet one in the room. This time, I was the one holding all the cards. And I was finally ready to play them. I arrived at Corinne's office 10 minutes early. Lena came with me, wearing her navy blue blazer and that unshakable calm she wore like armor. Fiona showed up soon after, hair tied back, face clear, eyes sharper than ever. For someone who'd once walked all over me, she now carried a quiet respect. She didn't speak much. She didn't need to. The conference room was modern, glass walls, brushed steel table, nothing soft or forgiving. Corinne had chosen it deliberately. This wasn't a family reunion. This was a reckoning. At 10:01 a.m., they arrived. My mother entered first, dressed like she was going to brunch. Pearl earrings, a floral cardigan, and that tight-lipped smile she used when she thought she still had the upper hand. My father followed, looking uncomfortable in a blazer he probably hadn't worn since my wedding. And Travis, he came in with sunglasses on, like a washed-up celebrity, holding a coffee cup like it was a prop that made him look busy. He froze when he saw Fiona. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. Corinne stood. "Take a seat, Mr. Dalton. All of you." They did. My parents offered quiet hellos. Travis didn't say a word. I didn't return the greetings. Corinne didn't waste time. She slid 3 thick folders across the table, one for each of them. "These are copies of the legal proceedings that have been filed or are currently in motion against you," she said. "They include charges of attempted identity theft, financial fraud, unauthorized use of personal information, and in Mr. Dalton's case, attempted real estate theft through forged documents." My mom laughed. It was a brittle, stunned sound. "This is ridiculous." Corinne looked at her coolly. "What's ridiculous is that you attempted to access your adult son's trust without his knowledge or consent. What's criminal is that you did so while colluding with his brother, who, I should add, used Morgan's social security number to open a fraudulent mortgage application and a line of credit." Travis leaned back. "You can't prove that." Corinne smiled. "Actually, we can." She pulled out a tablet and played the audio. A scratchy, recorded phone call. Travis's voice, unmistakable. "Yes, this is Morgan Dalton. Social is 489. He lunged forward to snatch the tablet, but Corinne was quicker. Fiona laughed once, short, harsh. "You really thought you were going to get away with that?" My dad finally spoke. "We didn't mean to hurt anyone. We thought we could handle it quietly." "You mean secretly?" I said. He winced. I looked at them, at all 3 of them, and I saw, for the first time, the cracks in their faces. Not just fear, but guilt. Real, choking guilt. Maybe not from Travis. But my parents? They finally saw it. Saw what they'd done. "We gave you everything," my mom said softly. "We raised you. We made sacrifices." "You raised me," I said. "But you never respected me. You raised me to be useful, to be the responsible one, the one who wouldn't fight back. You built Travis up like he was the crown jewel of this family, and I was the spare, the fallback. And now that he's ruined everything, you're still trying to make it my problem." Silence. Then Corinne leaned forward. "You have 2 choices. 1, we press charges. Fully. We take this to court. Travis will face felony fraud charges. The state may investigate your financial involvement. And the forged land sale attempt? That's a whole separate nightmare." My father looked like he was about to be sick. Corinne continued. "Or 2, you sign the documents in front of you, admitting wrongdoing, agreeing to a restraining order, relinquishing all claims to Morgan's trust, assets, and future estate. In exchange, we drop the charges. Travis's attempted fraud will still be recorded, but it won't go to trial. However, he will be flagged permanently on federal credit and mortgage systems. He will never be able to apply for a loan again without it being investigated." My mom's hand shook as she reached for the pen. Travis stood up. "You're ruining my life." I looked at him, really looked at him. "No," I said. "You did that all by yourself." He stared at me, jaw tight. Then at Fiona. "You really helped them?" She met his gaze. "You called me a liability. Said I ruined everything. Maybe I did. But at least I owned it. You never own anything." He turned and stormed out. My parents signed the documents in silence. My mom didn't cry. Not then. But her hand trembled so badly she had to steady it with the other. When they left, I didn't follow them to the elevator. I didn't watch them go. Instead, I sat there in that glass room, the air finally still, and felt something shift inside me. Not satisfaction. Not vengeance. Closure. Lena reached over and took my hand. Corinne packed up the files. "It's over," she said simply. And it was. The fallout came in quiet waves. Travis tried to go around the restraining order once. Sent a letter through a friend, asking for one last conversation. I sent it to Corinne. She had it buried. My parents faded out slowly. They sent birthday cards. No money inside. Just apologies. Small, trembling words that didn't undo the damage. I didn't write back. Fiona went on to get a job at a nonprofit startup hub. We heard through the grapevine she was doing well. She sent a letter one day, an actual letter, not an email, thanking us again for holding her accountable. Said she'd learn more in 6 months than she had in 6 years. Said if we ever needed anything, we had an ally for life. Lena and I broke ground on our house that fall. We kept it simple. A wide porch, an office overlooking the garden, a room for future kids, should they ever come. Peace, not perfection. On the day we moved in, I stood in the kitchen as the sun poured through the windows, and I thought about every insult, every lie, every moment I was made to feel small. And then I let it go. Not for them. For me. Because the best revenge isn't ruining someone else's life. It's building your own so beautifully. They can't look at it without remembering what they lost. And I never looked back.